Should you pull for Maid Chloe? Today we're going to help you answer that question. We're going to take a look at her kit, see where and how to use her, how to gear her, and see if she is worth it to you. Maid Chloe is a 5-star light soul weaver. Her S1 is heavy strike. She bonks you with a hammer with a chance to stun. If the opponent is stunned after the attack, it pushes a CR of all her allies by 15%. The S2 passive is Maid's Shear. She increases the resistance of all allies by 20% and heals 2 allies with the lowest health at the beginning of her turn. And finally, the S3 VIP treatment. She revives everyone on her team with 20% health, and for all living allies, she will cleanse 2 debuffs and grant them the revive buff for 3 turns, all before giving everybody a 3-turn attack buff. And now that we know her kit, what are the strengths within it? The S1 is very basic, but the stun can really mess you up. And note that when she hits an already stunned target, it will still push the CR. The S2 passive shouldn't be underestimated. The ER boost is low, but the heals are pretty good since it does scale off of her own max HP. And this heal will proc no matter what at the beginning of her turn. After the buff she got, the S3 is now incredibly strong because it will cleanse 2 debuffs before throwing out the revive and the attack buff, when previously an unbuffable would shut down her entire S3. The revived heroes will also hold the same CR they had when they died, then also receive the attack buff. Living heroes will get the revive buff, which does add another layer of annoyance. The F-Res imprints and passive do help with stacking the ER onto her, which is quite important because she does need to be able to take the turn to unleash the S3, which the soul burn also helps with because you can soul burn for an extra turn on her S1 to be able to rotate her skills a little bit faster. Maid Chloe is always a threat as long as she exists because a single S3 can change the entire outcome of a match. And now that we know her strengths, what are her weaknesses? Because a huge part of her kit revolves around being able to revive her team, of course the biggest threat to her is going to be extinction, and because of her buff heavy S3 and revive buff itself, it can end up benefiting the opponent's team when faced against a Landy, Emma Rin, or Rimuru. The lack of a big heal in her kit also requires her to pump a lot of speed and HP into her stats if she wants to be able to sustain the entire team. Even though she is still useful when her S3 is on cooldown because of the heal from the S2 and the stun from the S1, it's still a very long cooldown, so your enemies can play around her because her threat level does drop dramatically. But honestly, there are a few heroes out there that could make her seem weak and exploit her kit, but against anybody else, she is a complete monster. Unless that anybody else is a hunt boss, because she really doesn't shine in any hunts or expeditions or really any other PvE content. Though with a lot of heroes, they can sometimes find a use in Abyss, Trials, and now even Inheritance. It's still safe to say that Maid Chloe is not really a PvE oriented hero, which means that she is completely a PvP oriented hero. You can use her anywhere, offense or defense, she works just fine. There's a chance her S3 can be exploited when you put her on a defense, but I think she's still great as long as your team can work around her. She is a super solid PvP hero all around. But to be able to successfully use her in PvP, you're still going to need to know how to gear her properly. The standard build for Maid Chloe is a speed build. You may use an immunity sub or even F-Res. Your main stat focus is going to be on HP because the S2 passive heals are going to scale off of that max HP. You also can't neglect the defense because that is going to help you stay alive. The speed is also very important because the speed of your Maid Chloe is going to be dependent on your playstyle. Your Maid Chloe is either going to take the first turn and buff your entire team with the attack buff for them to unleash a huge attack, or your Maid Chloe is going to be moving last to ensure your team does come back to life if they get wrecked. Though I still recommend around 200 speed because you still need your Maid Chloe to be able to rotate her skills and keep moving, which is also why you want some F-Res on your kit because you can't allow her to get CC'd when you need to unleash that S3. For artifacts, I do like running Water's Origin because it's just a really solid Soul Weaver artifact. It pushes CR and makes her a little bit harder to kill. Then you can also follow up with a Shamadra Staff, which gives you more F-Res and boosts the heals on the S2 a little bit. Celestion is also good for some extra sustain, or Idle Shear for some extra push. These guild artifacts are also very viable options: Proof of Valor, Warhorn, or Bastion of Hope. Now the counter build is much less popular but a lot more annoying. The stat focus on this is much like the previous, but you're going to naturally have a bit less speed. You may feel free to throw on a bit of effectiveness though, because the point of the counter build is to be able to land the stun and push your team. If you have no effectiveness, what's the point? Because the S2 heal does not proc when you attack. it procs at the beginning of your turn. That's why I do recommend Celestion for any Soul Weaver running a counter set. But if you're not digging that, then I think Water's Origin is again your best bet. You may notice that Warhorn and Bastion have both moved up in the rankings. The reason is because Warhorn will help her take more turns considering how much slower she is going to be, and Bastion will prevent her from being CC'd when you're relying on her being able to counter. But if you want to give Flawless Garment a shot, this will grant you more FRES and effectiveness as well, so it could work. And now my final thoughts on Maid Chloe. Her PvE performance is really just whatever. She doesn't stand out anywhere as a must-have or a strong pick. I wouldn't consider her PvE performance at all when debating on if she should pull for her or not, but instead I would look at how incredibly strong she is in PvP. She is very strong in Arena, especially on offense because she can be utilized in several ways. She was much stronger in Arena before they introduced Rimuru and a whole other slew of strippers. Guild Wars, she's amazing. Again, on defense she can be exploited, but even then she's still very strong, and especially on offense because not only does she help you win the battle, she can revive and keep everyone alive so you can use them again in the next match. Then World Arena goes without saying, though there are a lot of threats out there, she is still incredibly solid and super freaking annoying. The investment in Maid Chloe really depends on how much you want out of her. I do think she requires a minimum of 18 molas to be strong. That is maxing the S3 and the S2. The S2 heal is very weak if you don't have molas invested into it. The S1 I do think is really worth it, but you're going to have to pump a lot of molas into it to be able to maximize the effectiveness of the stun. So you would want her at plus 14 to get the most out of her kit. The gear quality of Maid Chloe doesn't have to be super great. She can still do the job with mediocre gear because the biggest part of her role is being able to S3. Even if she doesn't take another turn after that, she would have still contributed quite a lot. That's why I do think she is worth investing in if you want to be able to play with her. Though she has fallen off a tiny bit because of overpowered heroes in the current meta, I don't think she will ever be trash because she will always be very strong in offensive Arena and Guild Wars teams because you can always avoid her direct counters. So here comes the waifu rating. I do like her design because I do think maids are just adorable to begin with, and she's also got the twin tails and the giant hammer. Very solid design choices. Combine that with her cuteness, it really does make you want to protect that smile. It might be because of the slight derpiness or maybe because of the childish look of hers, which is also why we cannot waifu her. No. So, should you pull for Maid Chloe? Yes, I do think she is worth the pull. She is a very solid hero and will always be a great addition to your roster. Though she isn't the most fun or exciting hero to play with, if you're concerned about winning, then there are very few better choices than Maid Chloe. So if you want more guides, check out that playlist right over there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe. Thank you for hanging out with us, and I'll see you guys next time, man. Bye.